Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about how sometimes life has a way of serving justice in the most unexpected ways. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Take my table. Enjoy your stay. One afternoon, I was working the first shift of a double and was in the back putting some things away from a delivery when I heard our other server looking for me. I popped my head out of the storage area and she told me I had a large table come in. We also had another server who was on work release from the local jail and was known to tell them she was working a double and then go hang out at the motel behind the place with her boyfriend/husband/whatever and then come back an hour or so before she was supposed to be picked up by the cops to go back to jail. I went out and found our jailbird getting the table settled, which was pretty a normal occurrence if someone was stalking as our job required. When we met at the drink machine, I thanked her for seating them and told her I had it from there. She told me no, she sat them, she was helping them, even though they were in my section. She was the senior server, no such thing, and it was her choice. We were also changing sections for the next hour. I told her no, we were not, and I would take care of the table in my section. She went and cried to our cook for the night, who decided not to get involved, typical, and told me to just let it go. If you weren't waving a six-pack of beer in front of the cook, you didn't exist, so I wasn't surprised when she declined to settle the argument. I backed off the table but refused to switch sections. The table left a $50 tip, practically unheard of in our little corner of the world. I was pissed. I was a student at the time, and that $50 could have paid for a pair of books I needed for a class. As it was, I was leaving with $23 and change that night. Yay. This also happens to be one of the nights when she decided to tell the cops that she was working a double. Not long after the table left and shift one ended, so did she. Her partner picked her up. She told the cook to call her if anyone came looking for her and left a room number. This was slightly before our current cell phone era. Sure enough, an officer comes in. Seems no one told him she was working a double. He was there to pick her up. Since we were busy, we didn't actually see him come in and didn't notice him until he asked where she was. It didn't take him long to figure out she was not in the building. Word was put out that she was considered escaped and to be looking for her partner, and anyone known to associate with her. Immediately, a plan formed in my head. Before she left, she'd made us promise not to tell anyone, especially the police, where she was. I agreed just to shut her up, thinking it was going to be like every other time she'd done this. Stupidly risky, but utterly harmless, and besides, not my clown, not my circus. And as soon as I got home a few hours later, I told my mother I had a moral dilemma and told her what was going on with my coworker. My mother did exactly what I knew she'd do. She grabbed the phone, called the sheriff's department, and reported that there was a woman staying in the hotel behind the restaurant who she knew they were looking for, and then proceeded to give them the room number. At work the next day, I got to hear all about how a half a dozen department cars rolled up in front of their room at midnight, busted the door open, and arrested both of them in their underwear. Her work permit was revoked, and she spent the rest of her sentence trying to figure out who ratted her out. When she was finally released a year or so later, I was completely honest and was able to tell her to her face that, no, it was not me who turned her in that night. I never called the cops, and I never told them what room she was in. Hope that $50 was worth it, B. It's crazy how long it takes some people to realize they're living by unnecessarily dangerous standards. She wasn't even out on probation, she was out on grace. And when you disrespect the grace of the law, things get crappy for you in a hurry. And our second story. Yep, I do work here. Since the beginning. 11 years ago, I took a chance at a job at a startup. I took a salary of 1/3 my previous pay because I believed in the company's mission and was excited to work on the project. At that time, the company had less than a dozen employees. The next 5 years were tough. I was laid off a couple of times. At one point, I was the only employee other than the owner. Most of that original crew had moved on. Only one other person that was hired before me still there. My employee number is 3. I know our product inside and out, designed a large portion and made the prototypes. In the last few years, the company's grown from a couple of dozen people to almost 250 employees spread out over nearly 3 nearby campuses. So far, I haven't really had too many issues. I try to introduce myself to new hires and welcome them to the team when I get a chance. I guess I missed a few, though. The other day, I had to go over to the main campus, use my key card to get in, and went past the office doors looking for one of the engineers. I work in the R&D shop and dress accordingly. Flannel shirt over a tee, jeans, and work shoes. I guess I didn't look the part of an office type. Occasionally, I'll get quizzical looks, but the company logo on my hat or t-shirt usually gets me by. One of the newer office employees decided I didn't belong in the office and stopped me to ask if I needed help. Thanks, I got it, and kept walking. Sir, you can't go in there unless you work here. I laughed and pointed at my hat. I do work here. But I don't think we've met. I'm OP, and you are? They kind of stepped back a bit and said they didn't recognize me. What department do you work in? Well, wherever they need me, but officially I'm R&D. Today, Engineer X and I have a meeting starting right about now. Nice to meet you. Gotta go. They gave me a funny look, but went back to their desk, and I went to my meeting. Not a huge thing, but interesting for me. We're really striving to keep corporate walls from becoming a thing. I suppose the bigger the company gets and the more spread out, the more I'll have to deal with this. But it's kind of funny. I can't wait for the inevitable big-time confrontation. It's going to be fun messing with people, especially since I can get away with it. The company pretty much lets me do whatever needs doing, go wherever, and solve whatever needs solving. Never take anything too seriously. Cheers! On the other hand, it's nice to see that newer employees care about who accesses your data and facilities. And our next story. You get what you asked for. So I've been working for this huge pharmaceutical manufacturing company for 5 years and have never had a write-up. In July, they changed the attendance policy. Our managers and supervisors came around and apologized for relaying the incorrect information about the new leave policy. At the end of August, early September, everything that could go wrong went wrong. I got into an accident and didn't have a car around the last week of August. First week of September, my pipes under my house broke and I had no water for 2 days. Then at the end of September, I was at work, got a migraine so bad I got physically sick and asked permission to leave work early, which is an excused absence. Otherwise, I'd be getting wrote up for job abandonment. Normally, I just suffer through my migraines. First, with the new policy, although we get sick time, it's considered unexcused if we take it regardless of why we took it. Second, our sick policy states if you're sick, you have to leave immediately. We make intravenous meds, so all this happened in September. I walk into work the first week of November to a write-up. I asked my boss, who literally just started the job 30 days before, what it was for, and he said HR told him to give it to me. So I asked my manager, and she says it's because my absences are considered a pattern. I also asked what the statute of limitations was because October I didn't miss a single day of work, but I got wrote up in November for August. Anyways, I asked how an emergency can be patterns. She had no answer. I set up a meeting with HR and she cancels on me on my day off. I'm not salary. I don't check my email on my off days. I only work 14 to 15 days a month. Keep in mind, I had to rearrange my schedule to even make the meeting. I ask for another meeting, and that she call or text so that I can get it whether or not I work that day, and HR sets a date, then cancels it almost immediately. Again. At this point, I'm pissed because I literally sent an email with 8 questions about the new policy I needed clarified, but HR refused to reply in an email. Anyways, per the policy, the only excused absences outside of planned vacation is FMLA, so I contacted my doctor and put down every current health issue I'm dealing with and get granted 5 days a month for intermittent leave for the next year. Now, instead of my working 14 or 15 days a month, I only work 9 or 10. All because HR wanted to be jerks. They got what they asked for. How typical there's a failure to respond to email. Management rule number 1, never put it in writing if it's against your favor. And our last story. HOA president invites non-residents to fish in neighborhood lake. Illinois, 40-plus single-family homes. I live on a small private lake with the land surrounding it owned by the Homeowners Association. The neighborhood has roughly 40 homes with 5 of them being on the lake. The HOA president has invited non-residents to fish on the lake. In order to do this, they're accessing the lake by walking through mine and my neighbors' yards. These individuals are leaving trash, taking fish with them, and often looking into the windows of homes. One individual parked their vehicle in my yard, and as I was kicking them off my property, they said to their friend, "We need to find out when they're not home." I've contacted the local police department, and they say because these individuals are invited out, there's nothing they can do despite them trespassing. I've contacted the state police department, and they have said these individuals are trespassing and local law enforcement should be writing citations. I've asked the HOA board to put up no trespassing and no fishing signs. However, they're incompetent and do nothing. Determined to protect our peace and property, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I organized a neighborhood meeting with my lakefront neighbors. We discussed our grievances and came up with a plan. We drafted a formal complaint letter, complete with signatures from all the affected homeowners, and sent it to the HOA board, emphasizing the urgency and our collective dissatisfaction. In parallel, we reached out to a local attorney who specialized in property rights. The attorney advised us on our rights and helped us prepare to escalate the matter legally if needed. This proactive approach finally got the attention of the HOA board, who realized they could no longer ignore the issue without facing potential legal repercussions. Within a week, no trespassing and no fishing signs were installed around the lake. Additionally, the HOA implemented a new policy requiring any guest to register with the HOA and receive permission from the homeowners whose property they would be crossing. This new policy was strictly enforced, and any violation led to immediate revocation of lake access privileges. The non-residents stopped coming, and our yards and the lakefront were peaceful once more. We no longer had to deal with trespassers or the disrespectful behavior that had plagued our homes. The lake became a sanctuary again, just as it was meant to be. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.